niko tayari kusoma, lakini pesa imekuwa shida. Imekuwa ngumu mimi niingie shule sababu ya pesa. Ningekuwa sahi niko shuleni, lakini sababu ya pesa haijawezekana. Nimekuwa tu nikitamani shule, lakini sikuona kama itawezekana, lakini kwa sababu ya mipango ya Mungu imewezekana, nimefika hapa hivi. Kwa hivyo nina furaha juu ya hiyo.
Nataka kusoma, nisaidie familia yangu, nitoke kwa umaskini. Someone who can help me out to assist me so that I can continue with my education.
Such stories have been replicated over and over again across the country as results came in after students sat for KCPE, and now they're being moved over to secondary schools. And Education Cabinet Secretary says we need 100% transition, but there are challenges in this 100% transition. And we're having a conversation with Jonathan Wisaya, who's an education consultant. We're also speaking to Andiwo Obondo, who's an education policy analyst. Obondo, I'm sorry to cut you short. I needed to sort a few issues, but right now we are back. But just before we took the break, we're looking at the essentials of 100% transition, and you said there are key issues that need to be addressed by the Kenyan government if they have to achieve their 100% transition. So you may want to pick up from there.
Thank you very much, Linda. I think there are several issues that we need to look at as a country when we want this program to succeed. One is, I was talking about infrastructure and facilities, where we need to look at the schools, the number of schools that we need to add, from 14,400 in 2018 to accommodate the new numbers in 2019 and 2020. We also look at the classrooms that we need to have, the libraries and the laboratories. The second point, Linda, is about teacher readiness. In terms of numbers, how many more teachers do we need to be able to take care of the new learners that are entering secondary schools? And what is the quality of those teachers in terms of training? And then lastly is teaching and learning resources, where we are talking about textbooks, both for teachers and also for pupils or students. And there's equipment that we need to be able to deliver the programs. We see, I think, the problem of evidence-based planning as the basis of the challenges we have. It's a good plan that we need to have everybody else in school. But if you look at how the ministry is dealing with this, looking at the plan that the current plan, we don't seem to have any data-based or evidence-backed planning that this is what we need. Like I think Wasaya was saying, we need this number of classrooms, we need this number of teachers, we need this number of facilities to be able to accommodate the new learners. The ministry seems to still be working on 2018 figures, because I think even the records that we have in that plan is comparing 2013 to 2018, and we have moved to 2020. I was trying even to look at the financial investment proposals that they are making. The analysis that they have in that plan talks about the figures of 2015, 2016. So I think that is where the problem is, that the ministry itself, there could be a problem with EMIS, Education Management Information System, and I mean, without proper data, planning becomes very difficult. I think that is where we need to come down and say, what do we do? Within 2019 and 2020, how can we be able to address the challenges that these learners are facing in the schools, that we begin to plan now for 2020 candidates well in advance, so that we don't have to repeat the same mistake.
But without data, this whole plan is not going to go anywhere. Wesaya, there's a very critical bit of this entire conversation that I need to know if it was involved. The teacher union, what role do teachers play in all this? Because I sit back and I wonder, I mean, the ministry should have sat down with teachers and said, guys, we want to get into 100% transition. What do you think about this 100% transition? What will you need? What will it take?
As my senior Andiwo has mentioned, it looks like when the Ministry of Education starts doing one thing, it must drop the other. You will notice that in the last 2 or so years, the Ministry of Education was not in very good books with the teacher unions, and there were wrangles about how do we transition from 844, the knowledge-based, to CBC. So because of the antagonism, the leadership decided not to engage the union or other people around the union on any other thing. And that is a very big weakness of the leadership of the Ministry of Education. When you differ with somebody over an issue, it does not mean that you then shut them out and stop engaging them. out of it, Linda, we are going to have a problem. We started our desire for 100% transition. This is now the third year consistently where the president is getting involved and saying everybody must go to school. Now, let me bring this to the attention of Kenyans, that in 3 years from today, 2023, the children who are in grade 4 shall be transiting to secondary school. The children who are in grade 6 this year shall also be transiting to secondary school. That is going to be nearly 3 million children transiting to secondary school, and we are not preparing for them because we are still having a problem managing 1 million. Somebody is not serious. Somebody somewhere is not serious, and that person is not helping the cabinet secretary. Or, to put it the other way around, that the cabinet secretary in most instances propels himself as somebody who knows everything and makes edicts, and the people around him just look at him and say, okay, let us wait, let it fail, then he will come back to us.
But you see,
there is something missing somewhere.
No, that would be very unfortunate, because irrespective of the decisions that are made up there, irrespective of the relationship that's out there, these are lives of millions of children out there that are now at stake. So whatever happens at the top there, let them deal with it, but let's sort out the future of these children. And it's interesting what you're saying, that if we cannot deal right now with 1 million, what will happen when you get to 3 million? Yeah? And that worries a lot of parents out there when you look at what's happening in the country. Mr. Obondo, let me just pick your mind a little bit. Education Cabinet Secretary says no teacher should send any student home, that the government is going to cater for these children. What, in my view, the ministry and indeed the CS forget is that these schools need resources to be able to run. How long are schools going to be able to take up these students? And do you get the feeling that the government is committed to cater for these students, irrespective of the numbers that are out there?
Very much. I think that is a very good intention, that if we can't send children away from school, it's a very good idea and a good intention. But I think what the minister is not saying is, when they delay to send money to schools, how do they expect schools to operate? When they are unable to send money sometimes for a whole term, how do they operate, pay suppliers, and be able to get all that they need for the children to learn? So I think what we should be expecting the minister to say is that this is our schedule for releasing money to schools. Like, I think I saw a clip that you played earlier where I was saying that money has gone to schools sometimes in December, and children will get money when they arrive. If you send, particularly for infrastructure, when you want to improve infrastructure, you can't send money within the same month. You can't send money within the same week and expect that schools we shall have improved their facilities by the time learners report. So I think what we need to be able to pressure and push the ministry, both in terms of parents, teachers, civil society, and even political leadership, to make sure that there's some order and there's some serious planning before we make political statements. Because if you don't send money to schools early enough, and you don't consistently release the allocations to schools, how do you expect the teachers to run the schools and even keep the children in school? It is a very good idea, but I think we seem to be running with political statements, but we don't look at the implications of making those when the plans and resources are not backing the statements that we make.
Yeah, so you're saying it's one thing to say don't send any child home. It's another thing when you look at the resources, because ultimately these schools have to run. Wesaya, so he spoke about how much the government is releasing. There's a document I know you have, just breaking down the amount of money that the government is releasing per student. But even as we look at that, there's a critical issue that we need to have a conversation about as we talk about 100% transition. There are teachers that are currently leaving parts of northeastern Kenya because of security issues. And if you're a country that talks about 100% transition, then surely these are students that must be taken into consideration. And I know security is a concern, Wesaya, but how then do we sort this out? How do we ensure that children in northeastern Kenya specifically are part of this entire conversation?
Children, especially in the northern arid parts of Kenya, have been literally excluded in the larger scheme of things in the education sector. So when we talk about even capitation grant and we talk about the subsidy in the free secondary education, they are beginning at a sub-zero level, most of them, because most of them have psychological issues, trauma issues that need to be attended to before they get rehabilitated into the mainstream education. But also their level of attainment, because of the context and the environment they find themselves in, some of them their achievement is below the national average. Those who do well are extremely very bright. They get out of Wajir, they get out of Moyale, come in Nairobi and beat our children hands down. But most of them, the bulk of them, 55 to 60%, do not get to transition to any place, and that needs to be sorted out. It was unfortunate that during Ambassador Amina Mohammed's time, there was an attempt at recruiting a particular caliber of teachers, especially locals, to try and bridge the gap of the number of teachers who are there. But instead of us having a national discussion around protecting the teacher wherever they are and ensuring that people respect the teaching profession, as it were, we reduced that conversation to the entry grade of what the locals needed to have before they are admitted into teacher training college. And out of that confusion, we dropped the ball. And we dropped the ball when issues CBC became heated. And that is where I find the biggest problem with the Ministry of Education. It is not able, with so many directorates, to deal with simultaneous issues. The Ministry of Education, up to this point, does not have a framework, a working framework with the Teacher Service Commission to deliver on any of its mandates. So the minister is here saying no teacher can send the child away, but the teacher is under the instruction of the principal or the head teacher, and the code of conduct is very clear that that teacher must take instructions from the boss, and the boss says we are sending children home. That head teacher is not answerable to the good Professor Magora, is answerable to Teacher Service Commission. So until we find a framework within which these two agencies are working to deliver for one child, we are still going to have a problem. And I'm saying this with evidence. There is some assignment we did in 2007. And I'm happy that I am here with my senior Andiwo, and he was part of the team. And it was after 4 years of implementing free primary education that 40 agencies concluded that free primary education was falling short. The foreword to this document was written by the late Secretary to Education, Professor Godia.
Okay.
This document is with the Ministry of Education. It has recommendations on what needed to be done. But the only step that moved was the establishment of the alternative provision of basic education and training, the UPED policy. They did not move beyond there.
I hear you.
So there were arguments around how do we arrive at a capitation grant? Do people need to participate to know? When the ministry says the day school is going to be 22,440, how is that figure applicable in Nairobi, in Lodwar, in Moyale, in Tana River, and Lamu?
Okay. I hear you, Isaiah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I have to end this conversation, but I hear you and I thank you, both of you. You're very categorical. There has to be proper data so that we're able to plan. And Isaiah says, look, we cannot have 100% transition if you're not having a conversation about northeastern Kenya that has security issues. And perhaps the CS needs to listen more and have a conversation with all stakeholders. Then maybe we can all achieve this 100% transition in an effective manner that is good for our children. And this has been The Big Story. We thank you for watching. A big thank you to Jonathan Wesaya, who's an education consultant. Andiwo Obondo, education policy analyst. This was the first time on The Big Story. We thank you for your time. And Dr. Lucy Wakiaga, who's an education consultant who spoke to our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna. I'm Linda Ogutu. We'll see you tomorrow.